the Waldorf Steiner education, which is actually named after Rudolf Steiner, but it's Waldorf. That's what they call it. Many schools, there's a Waldorf in Louisville. It's a humanistic approach to pedagogy based on the educational philosophy of Austrian philosopher Rudolf Steiner, the founder of anthroposophy. And so let's see, Rudolf Steiner. There's Rudolf Steiner, right? Hey, I have got this look cheeky hair. Look at me with the cheeky hair. Rudolf Joseph Lorenz Steiner is an Austrian philosopher, social reformer, architect, and esoterist. So we gotta look up what the esoterist is now. Steiner gained initial recognition at the end of the 19th century as a literary critic, published philosophical works, including the philosophy of freedom. All these alternative education models, they always seem to, always be centered around freedom. At the beginning of the 20th century, founded a spiritual movement, anthroposophy, with roots in German idealist philosophy and theosophy. Other influences including Gothian science. God, what are all these weird ass isms, right? Montessori education. We'll come back to Montessori. Esotericism is coming up here shortly. Anthroposophy is a philosophy founded by Rudolf Steiner, so he just coined his own word, right? It postulates the existence of an objective, intellectual, comprehensive, spiritual world accessible to direct experience through inner development. More specifically, it aims to develop faculties of perceptive imagination, inspiration, and intuition through the cultivation of a form of thinking independent of sensory experience. So, and to present the results thus derived in a manner subject to rational verification. So somehow he's getting a person's spirituality to come out, and then you could also, test it. Anthroposophy aims to attain in its study of spiritual experience the precision and clarity attained by the natural sciences in their investigations of the physical world. The philosophy has double roots in German idealism and German mysticism, and was initially expressed in language drawn from theosophy. Anthroposophical ideas have been applied practically in many areas, including Steiner, Waldorf, and some other ones. So it's a word he coined himself. Here's Waldorf, Louisville admissions, tuition, and fees. So again, Waldorf is actually, well, the nursery is much cheaper, but the actual grades 1 through 5 and 6 through 8 is about 10 to 11,000. Again, compared to Anchorage, one of the richest public school systems in Kentucky, they get about 18,000 per year versus, say the other public schools in Barberville, some of the poorer ones, which is about $8,000 or $9,000. It's still, moderately priced, meaning if there were public vouchers given to private schools or given to individuals to make the choice, that would increase competition in the marketplace. Instead of the public education system having a monopoly on the whole damn thing, they're creating, totalitarian fascism, and there is no sort of vision. There's no vision. Waldorf gives a vision. Montessori has a vision. Summerhill, Sudbury, they got a vision. But these public education schools don't have a vision, right? They just want to raise the scores of the standards from the state. And that's just, so you just want to shove down the students' throat all the stuff that you know and then pretend like somehow you actually taught them? You're not teaching anybody. They're forgetting the crap as soon as you fucking tell them. And so, if you actually look at the learning pyramid and you look at Maslow's hierarchy and you look at the equality and the power wheel, you'll see how, we're not, the holistic education of Waldorf is an incredible thing. And actually, when it comes to sort of the ideal standard of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, it seems very similar. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I think till you're about 10 years old, you got freedom to do as you please as long as you don't hurt anybody else. And here we see Waldorf pedagogy distinguishes 3 broad stages in child development. The early years education focuses on providing practical hands-on activities and environments that encourage creative play. So they say play, you can learn through play. Of course you can. In the elementary school, the emphasis is on the developing pupils' artistic expression and social capacities, fostering both creative and analytical modes of understanding. Secondary education focuses on developing both critical and empathetic understandings of the world through the study of mathematics, arts, sciences, humanities, and world languages throughout. The approach stretches the role of the imagination and learning and places a strong value on integrating intellectual, practical, and artistic activities across the curriculum rather than learning each academic discipline as a separate concern. So they're connecting them all, right? They're saying that these are the reasons why you study this type of stuff. So very similar, you got freedom till about 10, and then from 10 to 18, you got to be incorporated into society. You got to have provide of some use to society. The educational philosophy overarching goals to develop free, morally responsible, and integrated individuals equipped with a high degree of social competence. Teachers generally emphasize formative, qualitative over summative, quantitative assessment methods. The schools have a high degree of autonomy to decide how best to construct a curriculum and govern themselves. The first Waldorf school opened in 1919 in Stuttgart, Germany. At present, there are 1,039 independent Waldorf schools, about 2,000 kindergartners, and 646 centers for special education located in 60 countries. There are Waldorf-based state schools, charter schools, academies, homeschooling environments. Waldorf method is a large independent alternative education movement which has a worldwide following. In Central Europe, where most of the schools are located, the Waldorf approach has achieved general acceptance as a model of education. Waldorf education has influenced mainstream education in Europe, and Waldorf schools and teacher training programs are funded through the state in many European countries. So in European countries, they have adopted Waldorf as being, something to finance through the state. Summerhill didn't want the government funding any of it because as soon as they did, then they would start to regulate this and that. Public funding on Waldorf schools in some English-speaking countries have been controversial, with questions being raised about the role of religious and spiritual content in or underlying the curriculum, and whether the science curriculum, which has achieved notable results, also includes pseudoscience and or promotes homeopathy. The Waldorf movement has said that concerns over its stance on these matters are unfounded. So, that's Rudolf Steiner, that's Waldorf. Here's esotericism. Did it pop up? Yeah, okay. It signifies the holding of esoteric opinions or beliefs, that is, ideas preserved or understood by a small group of those specially initiated or of rare or unusual interest. The term derives from the Greek, either from the comparative inner or from its objective pertaining to the innermost. So it's about your spirituality, your soul, your inside, right? Your individual screaming to be free. I don't know. I got spirituality, but I'm a Nietzsche man, so I'm starting to value my body too. I think the body, you can't ignore the body. You're not just a soul trapped inside a body. Your body and your soul and your consciousness and all that, it combines to be a whole you. So an entire holistic approach actually sees all these things. And the Germans actually had like gymnasiums, right? There's gymnasiums that the Germans had brought, and so there's people that was working themselves out while also educating themselves. Here's the home of Waldorf education in North America. The Association of Waldorf Schools in North America is proud to bring you Why Waldorf Works, a definitive source of news and information about Waldorf education. Here you can explore this remarkable approach to educating children that boast an 85-year history in North America. Waldorf education has grown from its humble beginnings in North America to include 160 member schools across the continent and 14 teacher preparation institutes, one school entirely adapted for children with special needs, one school adopted by Native Americans, and 8 schools with educational programs designed in partnership with farms practicing organic or biodynamic agriculture. Genius! Genius! This is exactly what I see here. You got a plot of ground, you can do gardening, and you can do work, you can do husbandry, you can learn about animals, you can learn so much. You can have scientific labs, you can have computer engineering, you can do so many things if you allow. Here are the resources, this is your mind, now get to it, do something spectacular. And at the meantime, instead of the advisors telling them all what to do, they could be doing their own research projects, and then they could show the students how you can use the resources that you had to be able to make some plays, create some movies, learn whatever it is you want to learn about and be able to do it. Experience the thing for yourself. Experience teaching others, and dialogue is the best way to teach according to the learning pyramid. If you do the bottom things with the high levels of retention, so experience, actually get them to do things, teaching others, if you get them to teach each other. If education, I do see a world where we're educating each other on the street, educating each other in our homes. And even though it's a business world, where sort of you say, hey, how much for that? $50. How about 40? How about 45? All right, deal. And then that's it. You walk on. You don't say nothing else. But that's a very thin amount of culture, right? So I think we could do better than that. We can have better relationships. We can have better you know, more fulfilling, more holistic type of relationships. You can do a business deal, but at the same time, you can also do, you know, building culture, you know, having plays in each other's living rooms and teaching each other, educating each other about the things that you know. That just seems smart to me, you know. Instead of school being in a building that is separate from reality, it is reality. Instead of having a building that somehow it's in the central, usually centrally located in the community, but it doesn't actually, you know, teach anything more than that. We could do better than this. We could do better than this. And so therefore we should. So tuition is about $10,500 for grades 1 through 5, $11,150 from grades 6 through 8. And so, you know, there's some discounts and stuff too. The nursery 5-day program actually seems like it's pretty good. The kindergarten program is $6,000. So since they do focus on the younger child, just like Montessori, that would be, you know, worth it. Grades 1 through 5, 6 through 8, there's 10,500, 11,150. That's actually cheaper than Anchorage. So Anchorage better be given a kick-ass education. But again, I think it's going to be domination and hierarchical because they got a ruling class, right? A ruling clique. There's a dictator telling you what to learn instead of actually them learning what they want to learn. Waldorf School of Louisville, developing Waldorf School and a member of the Association of Waldorf Schools of North America. So there's one in Louisville, right? Waldorf School of Louisville. And they teach, you know, the way that they teach. Why Waldorf works. An introduction, so you can read this, Preparing for Life. For the Waldorf student, music, dance, theater, writing, literature, legends, and myths are not simply subjects to be read about, ingested, and tested. They're experienced. Through these experiences, Waldorf students cultivate a lifelong love of learning as well as the intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual capacities to be individuals certain of their past and to be of service to the world. Developed by Rudolf Steiner in 1919, Waldorf Education is based on a profound understanding of human development that addresses the needs of the growing child. Waldorf teachers strive to transform education into an art that educates the whole child, the heart and the hands as well as the head. So that's actually freaking genius right there, right? The heart, the hands, and the head. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Your hands so you can build and make things, your heart so you care, and your mind. And also the spiritual. They didn't even mention the spiritual. So heart, head, hands, and the spirit, the soul. When you enter a Waldorf school, the first thing you may notice is the care given to the building. The walls are usually painted in lively colors and are adorned with student artwork. So bright colors, evidence of student activity, is everywhere to be found. And every desk holds a uniquely created main lesson book. Another first impression may be the enthusiasm and commitment of the teachers who meet. These teachers are interested in the students as individuals. They're interested in the questions. How do we establish within each child his or her own high level of academic excellence? How do we call forth enthusiasm for learning and work, the healthy self-awareness, interest, and concern for fellow human beings, and the respect for the world? How can we find or help pupils find meaning in their lives? Teachers in Waldorf schools are dedicated to generating an inner enthusiasm for learning within every child. They achieve this in a variety of ways. Even seemingly dry and academic subjects are presented in a pictorial and dynamic manner. This eliminates the need for competitive testing, academic placement, and behavioralistic rewards to motivate learning. It allows motivation to arise within. So Waldorf schools. Again, there's Waldorf of Louisville, right? There's 105 students. So a lot of these private schools don't have but less than 100 people. What was it, about 68 in Summerhill? Summerhill being like the, you know, the paragon of alternative teaching. I want to read this about the Great Books. The Great Books of the Western World is a hardcover 60-volume collection. Originally 54 volumes of the books on the Great Books list, about 517 individual works. Many of the books in the collection were translated into English for the first time. A prominent feature of the collection is a 2-volume Symptopicon that includes essays written by Mortimer Adler on 102 great ideas. Following each essay is an extensive outline of the idea with page references to relevant passages throughout the collection. Familiar to many Americans, the collection is available from Encyclopedia Britannica Incorporated, which owns the copyright. So that's where the Great Books comes from. Eventually somebody says, these are the great books, the Encyclopedia Britannica, and then say everybody's like, oh, well, those are the books we should be reading, right? Shortly after Adler retired from the Great Books Foundation in 1989, a second edition of the Great Books of the Western World was published and included more Hispanic and female authors, and for the first time, works by black authors. For the first time. Well, that's fascinating. 1990, right? So big shocker that somehow the Western world, didn't have any black authors. What they don't think they can't come up with ideas. In fact, the pecan tree was the modern pecan tree was grafted together by a slave. It was a slave, and I think his name was Antone or something. Antone, and that's it. We just know his first name, right? We don't know anything else. So shortly after Adler retired from the Great Books Foundation in 1989, eventually with black authors, during his 10 years president of the foundation, Adler had resisted such additions. He didn't want to add the black authors for some fucking reason. So great, it's a fucking racism. Just as I suspected, the great books of the Western world, it's just apologists for white supremacy. So we can have a great books program without being so focused on just the Western world. China's got a civilization. Africa was, huge civilization. A lot of the just mathematics and algebra, those terms were Arabic, right? So there's incredible amounts of intelligence that have come through all parts of the world, and the best ideas and the great pool of ideas should prevail. So therefore, the best ideas should win. It doesn't matter who wrote the damn thing, who you like and who you don't like. It all depends on who was more important, what brought something out of you. So every year at the Freedom School, at Jonathan Masters Freedom School, what we would do is vote for 100 books. And the seniors would be giving something to the kindergartners. And the kindergartners would get an introduction into the Great Books program. And that is like one of the required classes. So I guess maybe once per year or something. I don't know. I see it being sort of like a community. A community is not so much like you go to school, but you live and learn and breathe here. So it would be year round, and it would be, it'd be sort of organized chaos. Lots of people doing different types of projects and sort of doing their own thing, but always active, right? Always doing their own thing. They can come in. I guess that's not. It's not a requirement. I mean, this is just sort of the principles that would be used to create the school. We did not base our selections on an author's nationality, religion, politics, or field of study, nor an author's race or gender. Great books were not chosen to make up quotas of any kind. There's no affirmative action in the process. We chose the great books on the basis of their relevance to at least 25 of the 102 great ideas. Many of the great books are relevant to much larger number. Okay. So that racist is just fucking trying to cover it up as fucking racist bullshit. Reggio Emilia is also something else that sort of, uses play like Waldorf Education. They said it's child-led homeschooling, right? That's genius. The homeschool movement, that's genius. The child-led homeschool movement. So Reggio Emilia, I think, is actually just a city in Italy, and that's where the Reggio Emilia approach to education, because it was developed around the village around Reggio Emilia in Italy after World War II. So therefore, that's where the name comes from. The village is around Reggio Emilia. And I don't even know. Let's check out what Reggio Emilia is. After such a great and destructive event, people believed that children were in need of a new way of learning. The assumption was that people formed their own personality during early years of development. There it is again, Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We have 15 million synapses when we're born. It proves down to 5 million synapses when we're 10. So from 0 to 10, you're actually able to soak up more. That's why they say more knowledge in education. That's why they say you should learn languages when you're real young, because it's easier to learn. It's hard to learn any language. It's hard to learn anything. But because you develop so that's your formative years. That's the most important time of your life. The children are endowed with 100 languages. The aim of this approach is teaching how to make them useful in everyday life. The program is based on the principles of respect, responsibility, community through exploration, and discovery. Of course, discovery. Discover what you want to learn. Discover your own interests, and you discover your passions, and then pursue your passions with a vengeance. So Reggio Emilia, it said villages around Reggio Emilia. So I don't know if this is like some sort of monument or government building or what it is. I got a couple things on Montessori, but really it seems like it should be fairly quick. So Reggio Emilia is a city in northern Italy. So the villages around this city is what came up with it. So it's just a city, right? Just a city in Italy. And that's the Reggio Emilia approach. I want to talk a little bit more about it, but I'm going to kind of close on that. That was Waldorf, and then I'll do one on Montessori, and then I'll do one on Reggio Emilia. And actually I want to do one on Sagata Mitra too. He has just a computer. Just set a computer in the room and have the students do whatever they want, right? Here's the resources of the building, and walk away. Nobody's watching them, not like fish in an aquarium. Just walk away. And people won't like that. That sort of, it's not irresponsible, but it's to allow them to make up their own things. You can do whatever you want to do. There's nobody to tell you what to do and how to behave. And so if something bad happens, you got to figure it out. Just like in society, if somebody does something wrong, we got to do something about it. And we got to figure out what is the best way to do it. You know, just punish someone, just pound them into submission. Sometimes that is necessary. I think it should be the last one, but that's the first thing that we think of here. That's why we got so many people in prison. It's a prison industrial complex. And then the school system comes from the Prussian industrial age. And we've seen the second Gilded Era. So when you have stupid ass fucking teachers such as Julie Chancellor from fucking Valley High School, that stupid piece of shit, she is sitting there saying how great the bankers are, how great the corporatist and the establishment is, when really, you know, they are not so fucking great. The Gilded Age had a strong labor movement, and they was very much standing up for themselves, but we don't talk about that very much. The industrialization came, you know, out of nowhere, and so people were scared that it was ripping the traditions and things that they held sacred. But since we've had the industrial age here with us for about 100 years, we've actually grown accustomed to this, so therefore it's normal. And to change the industrialized, you know, sort of way would be the traditions we would be taking away. So they made the economy scream, and they forced it upon us. But there was a large labor movement that had fought against it, and there was resistance, and people wanted change, and they wanted to do something different. Or they didn't want to be oppressed by the capitalist, you know, the industrialist capitalist. Well, the Prussian model was a strict three-tiered model. Only 0.5% were going to be the leaders, kings and queens and generals. Then only about 10% or so was going to be the doctors, engineers, and sort of the second echelon. Then the third tier was the Volksschoolen, the Volksgeist, the Volks, you know, the fucking masses, the people, the muck, the bullshit fucking people, you know, the people that just need to shut up and get in the factories and do the work for the fucking paymasters. And if they get out of line, we went ahead and hired some cops to fucking beat their heads in. Just like in the South, the only police officers were the ones that would beat their heads in for running off the plantation. That's where the police come from. So serve and protect? Nah, they don't give it. Sometimes a cop would be nice, but they don't have to be. They're just there to enforce the fucking politicians' fucking order. And usually, I don't even know if they know what they're doing. I think they're just a rogue militia group going around doing as the fuck as they please. And as long as they get a judge's permission, right? Because a judge could throw out all the cases and everybody that they accuse, they could just throw it all out. So somebody does need to be looking at this shit. So what is Reggio Emilia? We'll talk about it coming up.